one thing that's really been going on with Justin Fields throughout this process and this evaluation is that he's been heavily scrutinized. He's been put under the magnifying glass in spades. There's been questions about his mental acumen to play quarterback. There's been questions about his mechanics. There's been questions about his accuracy, all of this. And I think it's a trend we've seen with quarterbacks the last few years. We saw Lamar Jackson really go through it in 2018. We saw Justin Herbert go through it last year. We've also seen guys like Daniel Jones go through it, and people were right about that. So, Croc, let me ask you this. Has Justin Fields been over-criticized and over-analyzed by the media throughout this draft process so far?
Yeah, just in my opinion, and again, I have my guy on tonight that, you know, he's a quarterback guy. He talks quarterbacks and everything, trains quarterbacks. But in my opinion, I think we overanalyze a lot on social media now. You know, a lot of times it's pretty much as simple as, can a guy play or can he not play? Like, you know, and then it depends on like what type of, you know, scheme and system that guy goes to, you know, and then, you know, does he have the coaching? Is he going to work hard? Those type of things. But you identify what a guy does well. And I think sometimes we focus too much on what a guy can't do, right? Or, oh, like this looks a little funny or whatnot. Like, you know, I'm prisoner of that. There's a guy like Jalen Johnson last year, a cornerback out of Utah. He moved a little funny, a little tight with his movement skills and everything. And I'm just like, not my type of guy, the way he moves, everything. I'm kind of overthinking it or overanalyzing him, you know, when I really should just be like, well, he gets the job done. Kind of like a Debo this year. He's kind of the same thing as that. Well, with Johnson, he went and had one of the best years as a rookie cornerback last year. Like, he had like one of the better years out of all the rookie corners. Mm-hmm. So I think sometimes, especially because of, you know, everything that we do on social media now, breaking these guys down and, you know, we nitpick a whole lot. I think we do end up over-analyzing things. Herbert, that was a great one right there because I just saw a video the other day where somebody was like, Justin Herbert will be a bust. And I watched a video and he had a thorough breakdown. It was like a thorough breakdown, like hundreds of thousands of people watched it. And, you know, he had one of the best rookie seasons from a quarterback ever, if not the best, right? And I think a lot of time people focus too much on what his negatives or whatever are, instead of saying, you know what, how does this guy's skill set fit with what we want to do? Does he have the ability? Does he possess these things? And if so, then, you know, okay, let's make it work. And I think that's what they did. So, yeah, I think there is a lot of overanalyzing, not just with the quarterback position, I think with every position in the draft.
Blake?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I wanted to point to another example, and maybe in the other direction, where we know that Zach Wilson had that it was a crossbody throw at his pro day, and then there was a famous tweet of a guy, it was Sam Darnold, it was like the 20-yard throw against the Niners, and he's like, Sam Darnold can do these things too. And it's like, you know, one play in a snapshot that's supposed to show the how good the player is, but it's just one play. And I think in that sense, with social media, it kind of, people can nitpick things and, you know, play plays over plays to fit whatever narrative they want to believe. And there's one narrative that I think is really true with Justin Fields, in that Ohio State quarterbacks are busts. And they would point to Cardale Jones, Dwayne Haskins. I'd say those are the main two. The other guys weren't really that good at quarterbacks, like JT Barrett and Braxton Miller when he did play quarterback. But what do you guys think about that narrative and the fact that Ohio State quarterbacks can't be successful in the NFL?
I think a lot of people have kind of hit on that, and they say scout the player, not the helmet. You know, and I think that's true with all these guys in any position. There were a lot of people saying things like that with like USC receivers for a lot of years, like, oh, USC receivers, they don't pan out in the NFL. Then you see Robert Woods do extremely well. Juju Smith came in, hit the ground running, you know, and even like Marquise Lee, where he had a couple seasons where he was approaching the 1,000 yards receiving. So, you know, you've seen like, well, no, they can be successful. I think a lot of times you can put that on somebody until you can't. You know, there's times the air raid system, there were a lot of people, oh, that air raid offense, and maybe that scared people away from Patrick Mahomes when they really should have been like, well, what does he do well, right? Like, what is, you know, and judge Patrick Mahomes based on Patrick Mahomes, not the school he's at. And he looks like he's going to probably be the best quarterback in NFL history, right? So, like, do you want to miss out on potentially having a player, not to say that magnitude, but like, how would you feel if you were in the front office and you're saying, well, we don't want Patrick Mahomes because he's from an air raid offense, and you pass on him and somebody that potentially be the greatest quarterback ever? You know what I'm saying? Like, so to me, I hear people say those things even about Ohio State, I would say most Ohio State quarterbacks coming out aren't like Justin Fields. They weren't the number one quarterback or 1B quarterback in the nation coming out of high school. They didn't possess this type of talent, this type of ability. Even Cordell Jones, Cordell Jones, he was like a 4th or 5th round pick. So there weren't those same type of expectations for him. Haskins may be the only one, and the reason why he flamed out might not be the same reasons why Justin Fields might not work out, right? Like if Haskins, it sounds like a lot of maturity issues, like not being a leader, not working hard enough, all those type of things, right? Like he had those things going on. Like that's going to be the reason why he doesn't pan out in the NFL. If, he doesn't get back on track with Pittsburgh, it's not going to be because he went to Ohio State. You know what I'm saying? So that's just how I would look at it.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think that narrative is trash. I think it's trash. I think that the fact that it's just a lazy way of scouting or looking or doing anything, honestly, of any sort of projection. Like you both have hit on the fact, like there haven't been Ohio State quarterbacks that you look at and you say, that's a top 10 pick. That's a top 5 pick in general. So drafting Cordell Jones in the 4th round and having him flame out, well, 95% of 4th round QBs flame out. And then Dwayne Haskins, Croc, you touched on the maturity and stuff issues. But if you looked at Dwayne Haskins in college, which I did watch a lot of Dwayne Haskins in college in 2018, what he was asked to do and what Justin Fields does is actually totally different. Dwayne Haskins was a very good short thrower, and he threw a lot of crossing routes, a lot of screens, and that's how he got his stats. And they had probably the best receiving core in college football, or up there with Paris Campbell, Terry McLaurin, and it was really good. And he had great stats, but Justin Fields pushes the ball down the field. And then the other thing with Haskins is that Haskins just wasn't athletic. He had slow feet, and he was slow in the pocket. Justin Fields is a ridiculous athlete, so I think the comparisons are just way off. In terms of have they overanalyzed and overcriticized Justin Fields, I think it's 100% yes. It's not to say that the criticisms of Justin Fields aren't true. Like, I think the one read thing is total crap, but I do think there is an issue sometimes with his actual process and progressions where it can be a little slow, or the timing can be a little off, or where he can linger on one too long, or he can miss a post-snap safety rotation. My problem with it is that we don't talk about it with Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence has those kinds of things with him. I mean, I think Zach Wilson also, there are times where his process can be questioned. It's just Fields that we keep nitpicking and questioning. And it's the questions people had about Herbert too. And then when they realized when Herbert was amazing this year, they said it was the Oregon offense. I think a lot of people are going to do the same thing with Justin Fields next year in his rookie season. Go ahead.
So when people talk about Herbert, right, and those things still might be an issue. Like I know the Chargers weren't on TV too much this year, but anybody that actually just like watched the game of the Chargers, it wasn't like Herbert was like, we see all the splash plays and the highlights and everything, but it wasn't like he was just dropping back and, okay, I'm going to read 1, 2, 3.
Right.
Just Herbert was just being a playmaker. Like he was just using his traits and his ability and making plays. A lot of his plays were either throwing balls downfield deep and hitting guys in stride or whatever, or fitting balls into really tight windows because he has that big arm, or making plays on the move. I would say a lot of maybe what they said about him coming out from a processing standpoint might hold true. But when you have those type of physical gifts and ability, you can overcome some of that, as in the process of becoming a better quarterback. I was just listening to Benjamin Solak on Brian Peacock's podcast on Locked On 49ers. And Benjamin Solak was saying, like, look, most quarterbacks coming out aren't great processors.
Yeah.
They're just not. And you can point to all these quarterbacks and point out a play here and there where, oh, look, they held onto the ball too long. Or, oh, look, maybe Justin Fields does hang on to the ball too long. But maybe that's a product of their offense with all those deep passing concepts that they have. Maybe he wants to hit the big play and doesn't hit the check down. That doesn't mean that he can't hit the check down. That just means, hey, we need to make it more of a focal point for him to, instead of thinking touchdown every play, let's get you to just take what's there sometimes. Right. And maybe he could get better at that. But I think sometimes we don't think about it from the standpoint of, and I try to push this all the time with any position that I'm looking at, what can the guy improve on and what can't he improve on, right? If I'm watching the corner and I see he has stiff hips, tight movements, and slow feet, and he runs a 4.6, well, it's probably going to be hard for him to improve on certain things to become an elite traded corner, right? So he's going to slide down my board a little bit. But if I look at a corner and I see him do these things, but maybe his eyes are bad, like a Kelvin Joseph, right? Kelvin Joseph has the worst eyes I've seen, but the physical traits, the ability, it's all there. You know, I might not take him first round because of the inconsistencies, and I don't know how hard he works, but I know I can improve on these things if I coach him up right. I would look at that the same way with these quarterbacks as well. So I think, you know, with Herbert, everybody looks at how it turned out, but I don't even think they watched the actual games to see. He probably dealt with a lot of the same things that he did in, you know, from a processing standpoint in college. He just made plays and he used his abilities.
Right. I agree with that. I would say the other thing is that he just played in a better offense. And like, I thought like the Chargers did a really good job playing to his strengths. And his strength is that at 6'6", he's 6'6". He's a really, really pure thrower. He throws like Carson Palmer. And so they maximize that by running and throwing a lot of deep play action passing concepts. And he was really accurate and really good throwing down the field. Blake, you got anything to add?
I just wanted to say one more thing was like, I do understand why it's happening though. Like if you're the Niners or you're any other team and you're going to take a quarterback at 3, like you want to like look at literally every single detail you can to see like, okay, like what is he bad at? What is he good at? But the things that he is good at are kind of hard to teach, like his elite athleticism and his huge arm. So I do understand why maybe the media does, or people overanalyze quarterbacks because, you know, they want to have the best of the best. And, you know, there's been a lot of draft capital, but end of day, you know, if the guy can play, he can play. So
I think sometimes we got the wrong people analyzing. I think that's a bigger issue. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we got the wrong people, like, you know, like talking about something maybe they don't know much about. And I think that's probably, as far as the narrative on certain guys coming out, I think that could be a big, you know, issue, because when I watch the guys that know, you know, I watch a lot of JT Sullivan. He's showing you examples and, you know, showing you like, look, he went here to here to here and he's making these throws and this and that. So it's like, you can't say that this guy doesn't do it. Maybe he can be more consistent, but, you know, sometimes guys want to push these certain narratives and make it seem like a guy just can't improve on something.
And not to take it a level further, not to go away from Fields or the overcriticism, it's actually one of Blake and I's biggest pet peeves about the entire draft process, because I think what happens before the draft is players get reputations put on them and perceptions put on them, and it becomes really hard to shake. Like, if you're a guy like Sam Darnold, who was beloved before the draft, they're going to find 15 different reasons for why you're playing terrible throughout your time in the NFL. And with Darnold, those reasons are absolutely valid, but the media does a really good job of protecting their opinion of Sam Darnold. But if you're Daniel Jones and everybody hated you before the draft and nobody thought you were deserving of going 6, then people are going to trash you, even though you also have a bunch of excuses as to why you've been playing poorly throughout your time in the NFL. And I think it really bothers me, because I don't think that that's a fair way to define a player or evaluate him. I mean, look at Justin Herbert. We all agree he had maybe the greatest rookie season of all time, or the best rookie season of all time by any NFL quarterback. If this season was had by Tua, who was beloved before the draft, and Herbert wasn't, people would be talking about Tua the way they talk about Mahomes and Watson and Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. But nobody talks about Herbert because they were all wrong about Herbert.
Right. I agree.